Hey guys, okay, I am Jody. Hang on, now I can't get my cursor to go off the thing. Hold on. I'm gonna stop my screen share really quick. Uh, Nothing like technological issues when you know what, forget it. As long as you can see my slides, that's fine. I just can't find my cursor. And hang on.
Congratulations on getting us out of that other one. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. I think I got it now. All right, I just had to take the thing off of my screen. All right, guys, now that we're breathing, and if you're watching this recording later, just know that we had some kind of weird, awkward hip hop moment with trolls crashing the Zoom room, and there was a lot of inappropriate language. So we're here now. It's all good. My name is Jody Meschuk, and I'm really excited to share with you guys today. And here's the thing is we're going to be taking this a little bit of a different route than maybe you are used to on most educational calls. Obviously, you know, there's probably a little bit of a reason why I need to do that, just so that we can speak a little bit freely, but then also have some other things that we're going to talk about. But I am very passionate about this topic. Obviously, I'm very passionate about it because it's something that we have walked through in our family. Once you go through something, I'm sure many of you guys can probably relate to this.
Do you want
that once you go through something with your child or with your family or in your life or whatever it is, that stays with you forever. And I just have told myself time and time again that I never want my family story or my child story to be in vain. And I want people to hear that they have options and I want them to have education. So that's why I'm so passionate about sharing consistently all the time about things like this, because I just know from personal experience, lots of personal experience of walking through this, that there's times where we just don't get the information that we really seek and want, and we want to absorb that information and we want to move forward and be able to have options for our kids. So we're going to be talking about this topic. Really, the umbrella topic of this is chronic things going on with our children today, chronic things going on in the world with health overall. I chose these four. These four tend to be some of the more talked about things, you know, when it comes to autism, ADHD, allergies, asthma. They're very common nowadays. Now, here's the thing is we have to also look at common and normal a little bit differently. So I want to challenge you guys today to also think about the fact of common does not mean normal, because that's something that we are told all the time consistently. And when we can kind of step back from that and we can go, you know what, just because something is common doesn't mean it's normal. We really find a path forward and we find our power in that, our mama power. Now, I'm going to be probably speaking a little bit more towards moms because we have this really unique, special connection with our children. Not to say that dads don't, and dads play a very crucial role in the healing process, of course, too. But as moms, we tend to have this unique connection. So let's take a look at this really quick, which is we can't ignore the state that we're in right now, okay? We can't ignore that there are things happening, and we take a step back and we go, what in the world? Like, this wasn't the case 20 years ago. This wasn't the case 30 years ago. This wasn't the case 50 years ago. So just some basic stats to think about, which is currently right now, over 65% of adults have some type of chronic condition. Now, what that means is it doesn't mean a diagnosis always, it doesn't mean a label always, but this could be emotional too. But we know also that the rate of chronic challenges in the adult population is skyrocketing. It's not going the other way, right? We wish it was, but it seems to be going this way. As opposed to in 1950, it was like 10% or less. And in the population of 65 and over, you're looking at 85%. That should bring us great pause, okay? And now if we look at some of these chronic things that are happening in children, you've got autism at a rate of 10,000% increase. That's, you guys, 10,000% increase. We have to begin to step back and look and ask why. And that's what I want to challenge you guys today to do, is ask why. You might be here listening because you have your own story that's unfolding right now, your own thing that is occurring. You might be here for somebody else. You might be just curiously listening, right? But here's the thing. If you look at autism, ADHD, asthma, allergies, it touches almost everybody in some way, whether it's our own child, could be a grandchild, it could be another family member, it could be a friend's child. It touches us in some way. And we really do have to take a step back and start asking why. Now, I asked myself, well, what changed? What changed in the last 20 years, 30 years? And there is no doubt, the data all points to, even faulty data, there's no doubt in my mind that there are things that have changed. So number one, toxins there's a proliferation of toxins. Now, we can definitely go to stores and we can find things that are cleaner. Of course, you might have to do a little bit of digging. You might have to be a label reader. Like, they don't exactly make it easy, do they? But toxins are for sure a part of that. There's no denying that there is some corruption that occurs with that, right? Things like thinking about like the TSCA Act in 1976, how it basically grandfathered in a bunch of toxins that don't have to be labeled. Surely, yes, there's some of those things going on. Also, nutrition has deteriorated. We can simply look and driving down a typical street at the amount of fast food that exists versus real food. So absolutely, nutrition has deteriorated. The way we look at healthcare has changed dramatically. Now, I'm going to be a little bit more careful on this call because it's a different audience, but I want you to put your thinking caps on, which all of you have, your common sense thinking caps. How has the healthcare landscape changed? I'm sure that you could answer that question, right? But the fact that the way that we even look at healthcare and how that has changed over the last 20 or 30 years absolutely makes a difference in the health of our children as well. The ability to detox has dwindled, okay? So what this means is the chemicals that children are exposed to stay in their bodies longer. The ability for bodies to naturally detox in an efficient way, that has also been hampered as well too. So here we come to a place where, let's say there's a diagnosis or there's a label of something. And I want to start first with this because I think this is incredibly important in navigating this journey. So again, go with me on this because, like I said, this is not going to be your typical, I'm going to throw up slides and tell you exactly what you need to do to heal your child. It's not that simple. And here's why it's not that simple. Because I remember when my son received his label. And you know what? I was angry. I felt a lot of guilt, a lot of mom guilt. Can any of you guys relate to that? And if you can, maybe even share in the comments what that feels like to have mom guilt. Like, it's a very real thing. And then you feel something like shame, right? And here's the thing is we have to remember that this emotional part of the journey is very much intertwined with healing. I actually put a reel up today on my social media talking about this very thing where I said, until the parents heal first, it's very difficult for children to heal. Or basically, essentially, when you commit to healing yourself, when you commit to even healing your emotions, digging into why do I feel this guilt? Why do I feel this shame? And that it's a lie that the enemy uses with us, right? To take us out of our journey of healing, to take us out of that hope that we have, to take us out of the action. When we heal, our children heal. It's that simple. But we have to start there because the thing is a diagnosis can very quickly become a label that we wear like a little badge of honor. And it doesn't mean that we don't support causes. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about supporting causes that are doing good work and helping children and all of that stuff. What I mean is we have to be very careful that it doesn't become our identity, that we don't go into a place where we are so consumed with a label that we believe, that we actually believe we have no path forward and there's no hope. That's what we have to be careful of. So when we're looking at this bigger picture here of like a diagnosis and a label, we want to take a step back and really dig into that trauma, right? Now, again, I want to share with you a little bit about my story, which is, why did I feel that way? Number one, it's pretty common. How many of you go throughout your day and you could probably rattle off 50 million ways that you came up short as a mother? I mean, we do it to ourselves all the time. It doesn't mean it's right. It's just we're human. We're human. And as mothers, we carry this weight upon us that can feel so heavy that can actually stop us from stepping into our power as a mother and getting into action and doing things for our children. We can get so hung up on, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? Why did I do that? All this stuff that we play in our heads. And I'm telling you right now that all of you are probably here to find some answers and to find a path forward. But I want to really encourage you to consider digging into this area for yourself so that you can show up every single day as the best version of yourself to help your child on this path of healing. It's that important, because when it gets tough, and it does get tough, because healing isn't just a bottle and here you go, Jill, this is going to heal you. It's not that simple, right? There's a lot of layers. And every time it gets hard, every time there's a setback or regression or something comes up, we have to be careful that we don't let this grip us. And what I like to say is, keep us in the camp of misery loves company. Okay. So let me explain that for a minute. When you're on this healing journey with your children, there's basically two camps. You have the camp of misery loves company. Okay. So maybe you guys can resonate with this. Something happens in our life. And this was me when my son first got his initial label of autism. And I was like, where do I go for resources? I need all the help. I need to learn. I need to do things. And how easy it is to get into a place where everyone's just commiserating together. Have you guys ever had that happen or been in that place? And that can be for any topic, by the way. There's a lot of commiserating on social media lately, if you know what I mean. Okay. So it happens all the time that we feel so much more comfortable if people are commiserating with us. That's the camp of misery loves company. And I'm going to tell you, you're not going to get very far in that camp. You've got to pull your tent stakes out. You got to get in the RV and you got to go on the path of people who are looking and searching for healing, right? That we're going to do something, that we're going to figure it out. We're going to dig in, all of that stuff. So listen, again, why I start with this is because this is the foundation of it all. I can give you all the diet recommendations. I can give you all the things. My little middle there, so cute with his M&M shirt on. That was the funnest picture I could find 5 minutes before my presentation. So I can tell you all the things, but mentally, emotionally, we have to be sound in order to take on this process in the best way possible. So I want to talk for a minute about something called like your state, right? Because a lot of things happen when we begin a healing process. Now, again, we're talking a little bit more specifically about children on this call, but this could be anything. This could be your own challenge that you're having right now for yourself too. Is this something like I like to call as intention, state, and action? So there's like really three pieces that come into a healing process. But by the way, this is life advice, and I'm probably going to talk about this on the business talk too after this. So we all have an intention, right? I want to heal. I want to heal my child. I want my child to get better. That's an intention. That's like an expectation that you want. And then we have something called our state. And I would say that that's really how you show up every day. That's our emotional health. I want you to think of it that way. That is digging into the muck. It's looking at ourselves in the mirror and going, you know what? I didn't know any better, but I know better now. So I'm going to do better now. Like it's a little bit of tough love for yourself, right? So your state and how you show up every day when it comes to a healing process for your child is so incredibly important. And then you have the action piece. The action piece is the tangibles. Okay, well, we're going to change their diet. We're going to take out inflammatory foods. We're going to go see this place over here for therapy. All of those pieces are the action piece, right? But here's what's so interesting about this is people often think that the intention and the action are most important. When I ask people, they go, oh, well, yeah, like you have to have a goal, right? So you write your goal down and you got to have your action. So you guys got to do the things to hit your goal. But what people miss, and I think what is incredibly missed in this journey as well, is our emotional state. How are we showing up every day? And this goes into a little something called hope, okay? Hope is the greatest natural drug. And I hate to use the word drug, but I'm going to use it here. It is the greatest natural drug that you will ever have, that you will ever have. Hope is what forms your state to show up every day with everything that you have, no matter what comes your way, no matter what trolls come into the Zoom room trying to target whoever, right? Doesn't matter. Hope is your state. It's how you show up, right? Doesn't matter what roadblocks come our way, because they will. It's not easy, right? The healing journey isn't always easy. It's not supposed to be, but hope is what brings you through. So the brain is malleable, and there is a lot of hope waiting for you and for your child. Their brain, their body, I can assure you right now, the body knows how to heal. It really does. But there is this beautiful connection of the state of our mind and the state of our body that matter. It's like a cord attached to the two. I want you to think of it that way. There's a cord attached to both. So I pulled these two things, which is hope as an optimistic state of mind that's based on an expectation of positive outcomes and respect to events and circumstances in one's life or the world at large. As a verb, its definitions include expect with confidence, to cherish a desire, anticipation. Okay, great. That's awesome, right? But the problem with that, I have honestly, is that it's a little bit hung up on expectation. Expectation sometimes can get us in a little bit of trouble, because if we're solely hung up on the expectation and outcome of healing, and we go, well, I gave this and this didn't happen. I did this and this didn't happen. We have to come back to where is our state? Where's our emotional state in this entire process? So I actually like this Hebrew interpretation a little bit better, which means it's to bind or to wait with hope, right? So this feeling of hope is your driver. That's your engine that is driving you towards action. It's also the greatest natural drug, mama friend, that will get you showing up every day for your child, even in the hard times. I had a call actually today. It was like a little one-on-one call with this mom who was asking me just some questions about her own twin boys' journey with this process. And we started to talk about the therapy piece, and what we finally distilled it down to was that this is her moment. This is her, like, I'm going to step into my mama bear power, and I'm going to fight for everything that my children need. And I'm going to keep doing it until they get what they need in order to heal. So like the hope is that driver and that engine that gets you to show up every day and fight and never stop. All right, so thank you for indulging me in that, but I think it's really important. And so I would love to know, I can't honestly look at the comments right now, but if you guys, I'll look at them when we're done, but if you want to put in the comment section just how the emotional part resonates with your journey, and maybe even things that you have been doing to help that process, I think that would help everybody who's on the call listening and observing, because you're not alone. That emotional part is just, again, it's the underlying roots that continue to help our journey grow. All right, so let's look at some of these underlying roots of some things that are occurring in society today. So we have, we talked a little bit about toxins already, right? So there is this awareness to have around, well, what toxins are in my home and what toxins, could my child be exposed to? And just, again, being aware of it so that we can then make the changes that we need to make in order to remove those exposures. There's also exposures to just other general chemicals, right? Viral causes. Now, this can go a little bit more into PANS and PANDAS a little bit, but when our immune systems are exposed to things and the immune system isn't maybe necessarily the most thriving that it can be, there can be some balancing that needs to happen. There can be some things that occur inside the body. I'm trying to talk very carefully here. Incomplete protein. So this can also be where we can have some effects that happen in the body that could have things to do with like food allergies and things like that. And then we can have some of these targeting of the brain cells, right? So when the body doesn't feel balanced, like think of gut health, right? Like why gut health is so important is because of that connection to the brain, okay? Now this then is going to affect our overall immune system or our child's overall immune system. It's going to then have a compounding effect on the gut or the gastrointestinal system. Now, by the way, remember that starts all the way up in the mouth and it goes all the way down to the colon. We've got to stop thinking that the gut is just your stomach. It's so much more than that. And that's why it has such a profound effect positively or suboptimally on the body. And then you have the nervous system, right? So these three key areas, you can even think about maybe whatever challenges that your child is struggling with right now and how these three key areas play such an integral role together in that overall picture of their health. So now if our immune system or the child's immune system, the gastrointestinal system, the nervous system are affected, then we can assume that the body is going to kind of go, hey, what's going on here? And there can be some inflammation, right? So there can be some inflammation of the brain and the gut. There can be nutritional deficiencies as well. This is what we see a lot happen is the ability to take in the good quality food you might be feeding your child, but there's not the ability for their body to actually absorb those nutrients, which again goes back to overall gut health. There can just be overall general attacks on the brain and the gut. The immune system can get overactive or underactive, and then the muscle tissue can also be affected as well. So we can see this also when it comes to like motor skills, right? So a lot of times why OT and PT are so crucial in terms of therapy for children is because of how it kind of enhances that healing process, but it's looking at the motor skills. It's looking at the oral palate and being able to eat food. So we can never discount therapy, by the way, okay? There's a lot of pieces here and they all beautifully work together. There's the, physical piece, right? There's the tangible pieces of supplements, let's say food modifications, all of that. And then there's the therapy piece as well, which is incredibly important. So the tenets of overall health and wellness that I like to look at are going to be your physical, your spiritual, and your emotional. Now, what do I mean by this? Because we've already talked a little bit about kind of the emotional part, but also if you look at our overall state, our emotional state as well, that has a lot to do with how spiritually connected and grounded we feel also. Now that's going to be different for everyone because we have all different walks of life. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about a spiritual connection that we have, right? So we're going to obviously be hitting much more on the physical part during this talk, but three tenets that I always want you to keep in mind as it comes to overall health across the board is going to be your physical, spiritual, and emotional. Okay. Now, let's talk about some programs to consider here. Okay. So we're going to get into a little bit more of the meat of this topic. And now, if we look at what potential exposures are occurring, right? What could be, and we ask the question, what could be some of those underlying roots as to why we're seeing such an increase in things, then we almost work backwards in a way too. We work backwards in a way of removing some of those things. So the first one is obviously eliminating further exposures. So that's really hard for me to answer individually for each person, but that's where you come in with your powerful intuition, with everything you know and are connected to with your child and their story, alongside the education that you get from the outside world or from people or from books you're reading of toxins to be aware of, right? So, I mean, this could even be just as basic as fluoride in water. Like that's one thing where a lot of people may not think about or think deeper in terms of what type of clean water are we drinking or not. So that's just one example, or fluoride in toothpaste or things like that. So eliminating further exposures. We're going to get into that in a little bit more in a second. Flushing out toxins through detoxification. Now, this is really cool because here's the thing. Remember how I said in the beginning that chemicals are lasting longer in the body. They're lasting longer because they're making very smart chemicals nowadays. Like, let's not kid ourselves. They know what they're doing with what they're putting in products, right? So things are lasting a little bit longer. And remember, the detoxification process across the board for humans, for us, probably for pets too, but let's just say humans, is less. It's harder to detox because chemicals are stuck in there in a much stronger way, right? So when we flush out toxins through that detoxification process and we help to open those pathways, open those channels, now this helps to restore methylation, which is part of your detoxification process. Have you guys heard of that word methylation before? It's incredibly important just to detox things, right? So it also helps with the immune system. It helps like when we're not feeling well, that methylation process is like your internal sort of way that your body starts to restore balance, okay? Focusing on specific areas of need, okay? Yes, poop. Let's talk about poop for a second. We should all be wearing shirts, in my opinion, that's like, my poop looked like this today. Anyways, that's how much we should be talking about poop. And nobody talks about it. Your poop, your child's poop tells you a story. I remember the days, and I kind of still do it to my kids and they laugh at me, and I'm going to do it until they're out of my house probably. And I may even go to their house when they're married and ask them what kind of poop they had, is that poop tells a story. So if we could start to look at the things that are occurring with our children's bodies, and I promise you, you have what it takes to put that story together. Do not let anybody tell you any differently. You have what it takes, I promise. So we're going to be looking at their poop and going, oh, it's like fuzzy with spikes on it, or it's yellow, or it's diarrhea, or it's this, or it's that. Well, that tells you a story of what's going on in the body. And it gives you clues that you get to now put together and walk towards that healing process and whatever unique steps that your child needs. Behaviors, right? So a lot of times, remember that gut-brain connection can actually, it can express in terms of behaviors that we're seeing. Now, a lot of times, and this, irritates me sometimes, is it's like people brush off the behaviors. Oh, that's just part of this diagnosis. Remember that label again? Oh, it's just this. No, it's actually telling you a story. The behaviors are actually telling you a story of what's going on in your child's body and how their brain is processing things. So the more in tune we can get to that, the more discovery we can find with that, it's going to give you a roadmap. Then sleep and focus, like all of these areas, you go back to the 4 A's, and a lot of these fit right into those 4 areas, right? Restoring the nervous system. So this happens a lot through the gastrointestinal, just through overall gut health is where we can restore a lot of the nervous system. I'm going to turn on my light really quick. Sorry about that, because it's starting to get dark by me. And hopefully I won't knock over my zing. There we go. All right. There we go. Much better. Okay. All right. So first up is I want to talk about nutritional therapy. Now, I am a big believer, I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one on this call, that food really is medicine, okay? Again, we have to be really careful that we don't allow the expectation we have to take hold of us, and that we're rushing through this process and going, I'm just going to take this, and I'm just going to take this, and I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and they're going to be healed tomorrow. We've got to take a step back. We regroup ourselves and we listen to our intuition, and we listen to that voice inside of us, because it's going to tell you what you need to do, right? And food is medicine. At the end of the day, you can't drive through McDonald's and then take some multigreens and call it a day. You just can't do it. Okay. So we have to really look at food as therapy. Food is also nourishment. Food can be pleasure sometimes as well, but we're looking at it in this context as food actually has an incredibly powerful ability to heal the body. So dense organic foods, removal of high inflammatory allergenic foods. So here's the top ones, right? Gluten, casein, soy, and corn are your top 4. There's probably other ones in there, but honestly, removal of those top 4 tend to have a really profound effect on inflammation levels in the gut and in the brain. Removing yeast proliferating foods. Oftentimes children have underlying candida and yeast going on, and that is very much healed by food as well. And then blood sugar stabilizing. So if you think about this, like when you are in fight or flight, or when you're in a stressful situation, or when you're on a Zoom call and people crash in and they're playing hip hop music and saying cuss words, right? Your blood sugar kind of goes a little haywire because you're in a stressful moment. That's kind of happening in kids all the time when there's not a regulation of their behavior, like meaning there's not this balancing that they're feeling in their body. The expression of what they're doing is affecting their blood sugar. So the more we can keep their blood sugar stable, the better. And what increases blood sugar, right? Sugar, gluten, high inflammatory foods. Okay. So food absolutely is your first step. And I know that it's not always the easiest. I can absolutely understand that. But I want to promise you that it's powerful, and it's actually very simple. Emotionally, it might be a little taxing at first, but once you get in your groove and once you start to see the positive effects that occur, then you're like, all right, we're never going back, right? So, and it doesn't mean, by the way, that you can never go back to eating certain things. We're talking about healing, like sealing the gut lining, which is incredibly important as a step towards that process. All right. Next up, supplement therapy. So detoxifying supplements. This is something that is, one interesting thing I want to point out about methyl B12. So you're wanting to have the food source, right? Of course. We used a lot of methyl B12 in the very beginning of our son's journey, and we noticed significant improvements in his speech and his cognition. And in fact, there's lots of stats and studies to show that methyl B12 has an increase in upwards of 70% for children in their cognition and in their verbal abilities. So methyl B12 is extremely important. It's basically like, kind of think of it as connecting the neurotransmitters in the brain. Also enzymes, pre and probiotics. We're going to dig into this a little bit more in a second. I just want to point out your pillars for you right now. Gut health in general, obviously, is overall important. So enzymes help us to increase our nutrient intake, and pre and probiotics obviously help to create an environment in our gut that is going to be optimal, basically, to not just improve immune function, but also brain function as well. And less inflammatory, right? So it's helping to control those inflammation pathways. Metabolism supporting supplements. So things like just multivitamins and antioxidants. Again, we're going to get into this a little bit. Essential fatty acids. So this kickstarts the body's repair process. Most people are pretty deficient in the right kind of omegas. And especially when you're looking at children who tend to be in a place of healing and all of that stuff, they tend to be very low in omega-3 and too high in omega-6. So what we're looking at here is your essential fatty acids in omega-3s. And eating a lot of good fats, which we'll get to. Energizing supplements like brain cell food. So when I think of energizing supplements, things like choline, right? Choline is so good for their brain. Also good fats, grass-fed butter, ghee, coconut oil, avocado oil. Like literally, I'm giving you permission to go to town with fat. Go to town. It was one of the first things we did with our son was we started to change the diet, right? Removing inflammatory foods. And then I started feeding him a bunch of omegas and fats, and good fats though. We're not talking like bacon grease, but it's really, really needed for their brains. Herbals. So herbals can be, things like herbal teas. They can be general herbal supplements. We're not going to get too in depth in that right now. Obviously we've mentioned probiotics and then amino acids as well. So these are all just like really what I find and what data shows to be these crucial holes that often exist in children that might be struggling to really thrive. The other one that I would throw on here is minerals. Minerals, you would be shocked at how quickly your state changes, your physical and your emotional state changes by taking minerals. And if you guys have any of you on this call right now that have been taking like mineral essence, for example, put it in the chat how you feel, because it literally changes how you feel in a day just by taking minerals, because most people are mineral deficient. Okay. All right. So let's get into a little bit of detoxification, because this is kind of and we're almost to the end here, because I'm trying to watch the time since I'm going back to back here. And by the way, there's a lot to share on this. I want to encourage you that this is your starting point. This is like, if you feel, gosh, just where do I start? Go back to those pillars. Start with food. Start with a few supplements. Start with your emotions and how you, and really have an honest conversation with yourself of like, how am I doing with all this? Am I blaming myself? Am I angry? Like what am I feeling? And work through that process. You will be pleasantly surprised at how that actually affects the energy of your child and your entire home and your family. All right, so detoxification. So methylation is kind of it's a little bit of a buzzword, but one thing that I would just say to know about this in particular is that it's, stimulating the organs that are tied to detox help to remove those stuck things in the body. And so that could be a laundry list of things. Again, I'm going to be a little careful with my words I'm choosing on this particular call, but you can go to those areas and think about all the things that we may have in our environment that could be having an effect on our children, as well as those things that get stuck in the body. And if the methylation process and those detoxification pathways are not open, they're kind of just going to stay stuck and pool in there. And again, it won't matter so much everything we're doing over here if we're not opening up those detox pathways to allow things to leave the body. So your main things that would be great to consider focusing on would be like the liver, the kidneys, and the colon. Okay, these are big ones. The liver and the skin. I forgot about that. The skin is your largest organ. And by the way, when your body wants to purge something, it's going to purge out of the skin first. If the skin is not in a healthy state, and again, those detox pathways are like plugged up or clogged, it's going to go to your second detoxification route, which is your lungs. This is where, something like an asthma can come into the picture, right? I read a really fascinating study years ago that showed how babies who had eczema early on in their life, and it was not, let's just say it was kind of the Band-Aid approach of allopathic medicine, right? So like maybe the things put on the skin and all that stuff, which just pushes the stuff back into the body. The second elimination route, because the body's kind of like, I got to get rid of this. And now I've just got more stuff in my body. What do I do? Typically, the second route of elimination is going to be the lungs. And so that's when they see a lot of times right around age 5 or 6, some asthma symptoms popping up with children. And it was interesting in the study because it pointed right back to how almost all of them had eczema as a baby. So your first elimination route is your skin. Your second elimination route is your lungs. And your third elimination route is your colon. Now, what you don't want to do is get into a position where your body is now getting to the third elimination route, because that can be some pretty gnarly stuff. So we want to catch it right in the beginning, and we want to look for those signs. And if we're aware and we're intuitive enough to like look at our skin and go, hey, something's happening here, maybe I should dig in a little bit deeper and see what's going on in my body or my child's body, that alone can help change the course of the healing process. Okay. So liver, kidneys, and colon are really good to focus on to open up those pathways, and then increase sweating. I want to know how many of you guys maybe have gone this whole week. I want you to be honest. Think about your last week or last weekend. When was the last time you sweat? And I mean sweat. I mean like in a hot yoga studio, sweating like crazy, or it's hot outside and you're running, or you're in an infrared sauna or whatever. When was the last time you sweat? And when was the last time your child sweat? That is actually how your toxins get out of your body, is by sweating. So if we're not sweating, where is that stuff going? It's staying in our bodies, and it's just going somewhere else to cause some challenges. So it's called kind of like this kill, bind, sweat thing, right? So we want to first identify the core and the root issue and work on that. We want to bind to those toxins, right? And we want to sweat to get them out. All right. So I could do a whole talk on that, but I won't. Okay. Let's transition now. So that beginning information was a lot of foundational information for you so that you can be more prepared, you can be more knowledgeable, you can have that mama bear, gonna listen to my intuition. I got this, I understand things more. What can I look at in what was just given to me as it relates to our own story, and how can I start to connect the dots? That's what I want you to do. I want you to start connecting those dots, because you have so much information at your fingertips. But let's get into some, like, I know this is kind of what everyone wants, which is like, what do I use? What do I do? So number one, remember, I'm not going to tell you what to use or what to do. I'm just going to give you some suggestions of things that fit into those pillars. So number one is, if we're looking at removing toxins from the home, or things that may be causing, some challenges, right? Because gosh, you can look at even things in the aisles of stores, and they might have a label on it that says all natural or this or that. And there's a lot of greenwashing going on as well. So I think number one, learning to become a label reader is incredibly important, and going to be one of your greatest superpowers is learning to be a good label reader. But when it comes to our home, we're in it a lot. And a lot of people are in their homes a lot more nowadays than they used to be, because they're working from home as well. So imagine what we might be breathing in, what we might be sleeping on, what we might be exposed to, and then our children as well. So the simplest thing to do is to just throw them all out and clean with thieves cleaner. I mean, there's your answer right there. There was one day in my journey where I was like, okay, I think I'm done. And I gathered everything up and I threw it away. And I was like, okay, I have this now, and this is what I'm going to use. So really, that actually is such a powerful step that once you do that, you kind of never go back. So if you haven't done that yet, I want to encourage you to take an account of maybe what's in your home and look at what you can replace, what you can toss, all of that stuff. But honestly, just thieves cleaner. Okay. Other things with healthy home, you can throw a lot of things in that bucket. So replacing toothpaste. Remember, fluoride is probably not the most ideal ingredient to be putting in our mouth every day. And fluoride, I actually just read a study today that came out that shows very clearly the link between fluoride and brain toxicity. So something very, very important to think about. It could be personal care products, soaps, dish soap, all of that stuff. Now, again, you can hit the easy button and buy it already made, or you can be a DIYer. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Just fill your home with healthier things, and you're going to notice a change very, very quickly. I have people message me all the time that they switch to thieves cleaner, and literally within days, their children are looking and feeling better. So it really happens that quickly. And then nutrition. So this is kind of a larger, deeper topic in itself, but I want you to think about this. Is number one is, if you don't bring it into your home, there's less temptation, right? So I don't bring things into my home like a bunch of processed food and a bunch of sugar and a bunch of, Captain Crunch or Boo Berry Crunch or whatever it is during Halloween. Like I just don't buy it and bring it into my home because then there's less temptation. You can also do alternatives. So there's way better chocolate out there if you love chocolate or you want to give a little treat for chocolate or something like that. There's way better options for even making, like, I have a picture of my sourdough here. That's the best I could do was find my sourdough, but like even making your own fermented sourdough, it's actually totally different than yeast, by the way, and what you might buy in the store. So thinking about where you can start to do some swaps, but going back to that pillar that we can actually heal our bodies, and our children's bodies respond so fast to food, to nutritional therapy. They respond very quickly to it. So what I do is we kind of have this thing in our home where we're like, you know what, for the most part, all of our meals are a meat, a vegetable, and a fruit, or mostly a meat and a vegetable. I would say we do mostly fruit in the beginning of the day, or in the afternoon when they come home from school. It might be an apple with like almond butter or something like that. But our meals are very simple. We just kind of overcomplicate a lot of things, right? So think about simplicity is actually going to help you out rather than thinking about, well, what about this recipe? And what about this recipe? So we do a ton of grass-fed beef, organic chicken, if anything, because I know budgets is a very real thing. If anything, make sure the meat you're eating is clean. Bottom line, make sure the meat you're eating is clean and not full of a lot of junk. So organic and grass-fed. All right, some supplements that are really a part of our regimen. I'm going to end on this because I know we're running out of time here. Is so probiotics, right? So we talked about this. So this is kind of basically our regimen here, and this is a good regimen overall. I think that can set somebody up for success in just their overall health. So probiotics, Life9 Mighty Pro. Now, before Mighty Pro came along, I used to open up Life9 and put it in like water. The other cool thing is your oral microbiome. Okay, so one way to help spur a stronger gut for your children is to have them swish with a probiotic in their mouth. This oral microbiome is just as important as the gut microbiome, which is your intestines and your colon, right? So every so often, and we usually do it at night, I'll have them take some Life9, swish it in their mouth with some water and swallow it. So it's a great way to just get some good bacteria going in the mouth, which has an effect on digestive enzymes as well too. So probiotics, crucial because it's a pillar and a foundation of overall gut health. Digestive enzymes. So my preferred one would be 2, Detoxine, because it works very quickly, okay? So they're small, and I taught my children how to swallow pills by using Detoxine, and that's how cool they are. You can actually teach your kids to swallow pills. If you need to open it up, open it up. If you need to crush essential enzymes, crush it and put it in a smoothie. I don't care, doesn't matter. I used to do all those things, and I promise you there will come a day that you won't have to do that anymore. So enzymes help increase the absorption of nutrients in our food. So if our children might be having some malabsorption or some difficulties with that, the enzymes are going to help kind of play together with the probiotics to help your children absorb the nutrients that you're spending all this wonderful money on with good food. But even more importantly, it's helping their overall physical health and, mental and emotional health as well. The one reason why I like essential enzymes is because it has bentane HCl. This is incredibly important as a stomach acid that most people are missing. So it's a bilayer caplet. It's a little bit harder to swallow for younger children. Like I said, you can crush it up, or when your kids get a little bit older and they start to be able to swallow pills, you can do that. Adults, we all need to be taking essential enzymes because that stomach acid and how it starts to break things down in the very beginning is the step before things start to go into the intestines. It's really incredibly important. Multigreens. A lot of people don't know multigreens is actually like an emotional supplement. So this has choline. A couple of things, I'm not going to point out every ingredient in multigreens, but choline. Choline is your magic ingredient in multigreens that helps feed the brain. Plain and simple. I used to open them up and put them in applesauce for my son. Whatever you got to do. There's also Melissa oil in there, and Melissa oil is such a wonderful emotional oil. So while multigreens is wonderful for minerals, because we kind of talked about mineral deficiencies, you can get some minerals in there. It's also great for emotions and behavior and all of that stuff. I notice when I don't take it. I mean, me personally, as an adult, as the mom, I notice when I don't take it, and I'm a little bit more snippy. So, and I respond to stress worse if I'm not taking it. All right, sulfurzyme is going to help open up those detox pathways. It's really great complement to methylation. Now, I do prefer the powder. It does have prebiotics, which is going to help your probiotics. So I do prefer that. But at the end of the day, if you want to take the capsule, go for it. But it's a little sweet, right? So you can mix it in Ninja, you can put it in smoothies, you can do whatever you need to do, but it's worth it. It is well worth it for how it interplays with the methylation process. ImmuPro is one I pulled out because a lot of children have trouble sleeping, very kind of disrupted sleep and just challenges with that. Also, it's just great as for overall immune support, but it can be really helpful to just give a nice quality sleep. So we use ImmuPro a lot and we love it. The reishi mushrooms, go research reishi mushrooms. Your mind will be blown, okay? Super B, Mighty Bites Master Formula, these are all ways that you can get folate. You can get the B vitamins in your children. So these are some things to consider in terms of that methylation process, right? And the neurotransmitters. And then MindWise, I pulled out because it's really a great complement to the omega deficiencies. Now it's plant-based, which is great, especially for people who maybe don't want a fish-based one. I will say though, that I would consider marrying that with a cod liver oil. So I personally, love to do that every so often, which is more a cod liver oil based omega, but we also use MindWise as well. And you can mix that as also with your Ninja too. So that's a little plan for you. I'm going to stop my screen share here really quick and see what questions we might have. I know I went right to 6 o'clock. I'm sorry. I should have totally been timing it, but I haven't been looking at the comments. So let me know what I missed. And let's see here. Let's see. So many comments. Good job, guys. I love this. Okay. How do you normally do this, Stacy? Do you want me to look at questions, or do you want to pull anything out, or we just move on to the next one?
Yes, I was just looking for some as well. Most people are just saying what they actually use themselves. So
Good.
that's
Good.
amazing how much they love the products that you just mentioned.
Love it.
Yeah, and there's a couple comments about ImmunePro, and one thing I like too is that I only need a half of one at night, where my girlfriend who's only 90 pounds takes 2, so everyone's different for what they
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, last night I gave my daughter 2. I just felt like she needed 2, and she woke up this morning perfectly fine. You can read between the lines on that one. But yeah, you just kind of, yeah.
a lot of great tips. So when we post this, maybe we can do the chat as well, the chat thread.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say, or do you want anyone to?
Well, I definitely just want to encourage you guys. So I was going to stop and just see if there were any pressing questions, but here's the thing that I want to encourage you with. This is a very, this topic in itself there's a lot to unpack, right? But I want to also encourage you that it doesn't have to be complicated. It's actually very simple when you look at those building blocks. And really, one of the most important things is listening to your intuition. I'm going to tell you right now, you know exactly what your child needs. Nobody knows that better than you. And when we outsource that to somebody else just because we think that they know more than us, we take away from that incredible, beautiful, energetic cord that we have between us and our child. And yeah, men don't have that. Women have that. It's a beautiful, special connection. So trust that and listen to that. And if you need a place to start, you start with one of these things. You put one foot in front of the other. Maybe tomorrow you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, okay, I'm doing this. Like, I don't care what happened in the past. I don't care how I beat myself up. I'm doing this, and I'm doing it for my child, because they look at you like you are the bee's knees. I'm not even kidding. We tear ourselves up every day. Your child is looking at you like you are the best thing on this planet. And you've got to own that, because that's your power right there. So that's where I want to end.